Hi, welcome back to Elevate. My name is Angie Chang, founder of Girl Geek X, and with us today we have Margaret Johnson, who is an engineering group leader with over 2 decades of experience. She's passionate about technology, bringing out the best in people and making a lasting impact. She has her bachelor and master's in electrical engineering from MIT. So welcome, Margaret.
Thank you, Angie, and thank you to Girl Geek for this opportunity to share with you some of the things that I think I would have loved to, share with my younger self. And um, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at the end. So I wanted to talk about growing your career through experimentation. It's something that is near and dear to my heart, and I'll share with you why. And so the agenda will go through a quick introduction and talk about why experiments are helpful and important. What is an experiment? How do we see that in the workplace? And how do we experiment? And then we'll end with some final takeaways. So again, my name is Margaret Wang Johnston. I've been in the semiconductor industry for now 20 plus years, and I've been in numerous startups and have mentored several more junior engineers within my group. And within the scope of my work, I've been focused on data center interconnects and have helped bring products from concept to multi-million-dollar revenues. As Angie said, I've graduated from MIT, my bachelor's and master's in electrical engineering. And it's just so important to me within the workplace to both have a heart for innovation, drive technology forward, but do so with integrity, and to build a team that really brings out the best in people and do it in a way in which there is trust within the workplace and that security and a place where making mistakes is okay. And last but not least, I am a mother of two girls, which you can see here, and this is a very typical family photo of ours where, at best, one or two of us are looking at the camera, and their ages 4 and 8. And so as I continue in my engineering career, I think about them and think about wanting to equip them to pursue their dreams and the tools that would help them do that. So about 15 years ago, I was called into my manager's office. And if you're anything like me, when you're called into a manager's office, my first thought is, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? Or, what mistakes did I make? But anyway, I sat across the table from him. And his question to me that day was, Margaret, would you be open to considering becoming a manager? And my first reaction was, just one of startle and I think he saw my face, and he said, Margaret, I learn the best from my mistakes, and why don't we see this as an experiment, and we can try it out, and you can see if you like it, and you can also learn from doing, and then maybe in a few months we can reevaluate and see whether or not this is something you want to do. And thinking back, that was such a powerful way of making this request. By reframing this as an experiment, it completely put me at ease, and I was willing to try it out. And as I think back as to why that made a difference in my decision by this reframing, One, it gave me permission to fail, that he normalized the possibilities of making mistakes because we all do, we're human. Um, and it lowered the stakes and it allowed me to test it out little by little. He wasn't expecting me to be the perfect manager on day one. Um, and um, it was reversible. It was something I could try and gather the information. And if it worked out, great. And if it didn't, I can come back to being an individual contributor. And that is the power of experiments. Buckminster Fuller, an architect and inventor, once said, "There's no such thing as a failed experiment, only experiments with unexpected outcomes." And that is just so true. Um, we all gain more information by doing the experiments. So why experiment? It gives us a tool to discover new knowledge, to explore beyond our comfort zone. It's reversible. Um, it is allowing us to have iterative learning and to continually improve ourselves. And it allows us to collect data about ourselves, about the technology that we're working on. Um, and for me, with that, having that data is ultimately what builds my confidence. That by doing, I know more about myself, or I know about the product that I'm developing, and that is hard and concrete data that gives me confidence. And as Ralph Waldo Emerson, a poet and philosopher, once said, "The mind, once stretched by a new idea, never returns to its original dimension." So why wouldn't we expand our minds? So what is an experiment? Um, it's defined as a procedure designed to test a hypothesis, to demonstrate a phenomenon, or to validate a theory. It involves systematically manipulating one or more variables under controlled conditions to observe the effects on other variables. And it provides empirical evidence to support or refute our hypotheses. And we do it every day. It can be large or small. We do it in cooking. We try a little more spice here and there. We add a little more water here and there. We do it in gardening. And parenting is really the ultimate trial and error experiment that we do on a daily basis. So experiment is nothing that is unfamiliar to us. It's something that's part of our everyday. And if we can bring it into the workplace, I think it'll be that much more powerful. In terms of how to experiment, it can vary widely depending on the experiment, right? It could take 3 minutes, 3 days, 3 hours, 3 weeks, 3 months, or more. And as you can see from this chart, the 3 minute is this tiny, tiny sliver on the bottom right, while 3 months is just exponentially larger. And so if our goal is to maximize our learning, then we want to maximize the number of iterations so that we can accelerate our learning. And we can even break down some of the ones that take longer time frame to smaller chunks so that we learn along the way. And as I think about experiment in the workplace, I think it can be broken down into 3 areas: technical, leadership, and social and relational. And I'll give you a few examples of each. So the first experiment of leadership, going back to the story that I started with, 15 years ago. So I started managing one of the junior engineers on our team. It was not as easy as I had thought. It was difficult, but I learned a lot about myself. I learned that one, I had unrealistic expectations of the junior engineers, and I had to adjust the ratio of asking versus guiding. That I needed to provide more guidance instead of just ask. And over time, that ratio slowly changed. I learned that as a manager, I had both the power to lift people up, but I also had the power to bring people down. And that my actions, I had to watch the things that I say and my actions that much more because it impacted other people. And over time, very slowly, I started to see that our group's productivity increased, and that having a team, that the team had a greater output, and that became a very satisfying thing. And ultimately, I continued on as a manager. And as I applied more experimentation to the technical side, one of the areas in which I applied it is for us, our products, we have a requirement certainly to test our products to the point of compliance. But what I learned was really what we ought to do is to test our parts to failure, and not just stop at the boundary of compliance. And by doing so, I learned where the failure points were. I learned how much margin we have. And I would slowly began to build an intuition for the sensitivity of different parameters for our product. And that was extremely helpful for me in the workplace technically. And the third area of experiment is social relational. As we all know, the workplace is full of different people, and the better that we can connect with our colleagues or our customers or our partners, the better. And one area that was brought to the forefront recently was we had a new remote colleague who had trouble getting the help and the information she needed as she's ramping up with work. And she was really afraid to bother other colleagues. You know, everyone seems so busy. And so she would use a work chat as a way to communicate with other colleagues, but found that she wasn't really getting the response she needed to really fully ramp up on her work. And so she started experimenting, and she started to call the colleagues or use video conference. And she shared with me that she saw such a difference in the way that people responded, and some of some of the questions that she asked, people would offer additional information, which allowed her to just get a fuller picture of what she was doing, and she was able to establish rapport. She felt more connected to the group, and then looking back, there is the 73855 rule where 7%, only 7% of what we communicate comes from the actual words. And so that would be from the chat. But 38% comes from tone of voice, 55% comes from body language. And so the benefit of having a phone call or having video conference is just that much more effective. And so if I could in terms of the final takeaways and the things that I hope you walk away with, is to think about applying experimental mindset in the workplace, using it to boost learning, to help growth, and to try out different things, to use it to expand our understanding, our knowledge, some of the areas to try would be in leadership, would be on the technical side, social relational, and ultimately to continue to iterate and refine. And that experiments gives us the permission to fail, but we learn from it, and so therefore we're failing forward. We're failing. We're failing, but gaining additional knowledge so that we are ultimately one step ahead of where we were. That's the end of my slides, and I want to thank you for listening, for participating. I want to thank Girl Geek and also just as I'm thinking about my journey, I have been just so grateful for all the people who have been a part of my journey, who have supported and guided me along the way. I hope that you would feel comfortable to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. I think that hopefully we haven't used up all the 20 minutes, and I can help answer some questions that you have in the chat. Great. Question. How can we support others' experiments? That's a great question. I think first we need to share with each other our experiments and also encourage each other to not be afraid to make mistakes. Let's see. During the experimental period, failure is common, sometimes up to 80% of the time. And how do you keep yourself motivated? That's a great question too. I think the way to stay motivated is actually how we view failure. Even if the experiment failed, you have gained knowledge, and so you did not. You're actually one step ahead of where you were. You're not at the same place that you were. And so even if something failed, that is additional information and additional data that you have. So I think by viewing it that way, then gathering even failures is a way of moving forward.